What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with Bungie's Destiny 2 updates. Of course, part of that is the TWID, which is Bungie's weekly update. There are a few things to round up there. Bungie also talk about seasonal content or episode content. I just can't stop calling the episode a season. Importantly though, we do have a few changes for some of the seasonal modes, some quality of life improvements, and incoming updates for exotics, and a couple of other minor announcements from Bungie today. So, as always guys, I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, a rating really helps us out down below, but now let's get into it. And first up, something to note here, but Bungie Help said the 8005 patch note stated that our fix for the Precious Scars exotic was included in the release, but the fix did not go live as expected and has been rescheduled for an upcoming release. But additionally, they say it will correct the exotic's functionality for players using both the Sol Invictus and Offensive Bulwark aspects, so the change that they'd outlined hasn't actually gone live just yet, but it will be coming in another update. So that's the first thing to note, but otherwise, the D2 team said, "Hey everyone, we've heard feedback about certain frustrating elements in the Breach executable mode, and we have a couple of changes planned for next week's update to improve the experience." So firstly, they say some enemies were hitting a little too hard, particularly those affected by both Void Threat and Air Superiority and blasts. And we want to keep a bit of variety in the modifiers, so because the Void Threat is constantly applied, we're removing it from Expert Breach executable. So that's in particular going to make the Expert mode more enjoyable, hopefully. But they also say we'll be improving the hunt for the planetary pistons and radiolite samples with several changes. So firstly, Guardians will always be able to find 2 pistons in each run of Breach executable. And on top of that, the piston waypoint range is increased for easier visibility. And that's an important one because, of course, when we activate those pistons and pick up the various materials that it highlights, it will actually improve the rewards that we get at the end of the activity. And of course we can pick up some exotic drops and things like that in there, but additionally they say the delay before being teleported to join allies in the next encounter is being increased, and this means you can continue to extract samples when your teammates push ahead, but additionally extracting radiolite samples is now instant, so you can get back into the action faster. So fewer opportunities to miss out on samples right there. I quite like the instant pickup as well, so I'm guessing we'll just literally interact with it. There won't be a wait timer. And so those sound good, but also, the D2 team said, we've also investigated reports of Guardians being unable to find specimen Nest 03 and to start the research quest for the Week 4 seasonal challenge. And they add that this specimen was originally intended to be found during Week 4, however, the issue will be resolved at the next weekly reset. So luckily we'll get that research quest next week, and considering we won't have any story beats, we will have plenty of time to get that one done on next Tuesday's reset. So overall, I think some good changes right there for Breach executable, and give us your thoughts about them down below. Next up though, as we move on to the TWID, Bungie actually talk about Act 2 of Episode 1, which begins on July 16th. So they say after touching base with our old friend Failsafe and starting an investigation into the Vex on Nessus, we found that something is not quite right, and the revelations of Act 1 will drive your investigation even further into Nessus in Act 2 when it launches on the 16th, and to make sure you're equipped with the latest intel, we'll be hosting a developer livestream ahead of time to preview the new content that's coming, and they finally say they will have more details on the timing of that live stream for us soon. So rather interesting there. I'm not surprised that Bungie have spoken about the launch date for Act 2. Of course that's only, 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks away now, but the fact that they'll actually be hosting a live stream to show off some of that content is definitely interesting. We know that a few more weapons will come into the game. We'll also get a new activity called Echo's Battlegrounds, and the continuation of the story, but it seems possible there'll be other elements to it as well, considering Bungie fancy hosting a live stream to show that content off. So I'm curious to see what we get there. Let us know your thoughts about it. They also say, for any folks who want to work on some Echoes art, if you fancy sharing those contributions on Twitter with the hashtag Echoes AOTW, Artist of the Week of course, then any pieces of art selected will be shown in the TWID, and authors will earn a new emblem, which is pretty cool as we can see right there. So just an additional thing to think about, and more details about it are linked in the TWID below. And next, Bungie speak about the return of Iron Banner. So they say, interestingly, to begin with, for Episode 1, Iron Banner will now be a 2-week event, and it'll be the main PvP focus for that time. Players will be able to earn rewards, climb ranks, and own their PvP skills in one game mode during the first week, and then another game mode will be featured in the second week. And in this first iteration of Iron Banner for Echoes, the first game mode available is Control, and the second will be Tribute. So 2 weeks of Iron Banner is an interesting mix-up right there. They also say we'll get a couple of new weapons added for Iron Banner in Echoes. The first weapon is a renewed Criminal's Dagger, and it's still a kinetic aggressive frame hand cannon, but it now comes with a small bump to its stats, and perks like Precision Instrument or Kill Clip. Plus the other weapon available will be Claws of the Wolf, a rapid-fire frame Void Pulse Rifle with a fan-favourite perk like Head Seeker and Zen Moment. Although the new perks like To the Pain are worth checking out as well, and getting many rolls for these weapons will be easier, we'll still need to unlock them first in order to get drops. And that'll require getting to ranks 4 and 7 with Saladin, but then we'll have a good chance to earn them as post-match rewards, and wins now guarantee a random Iron Banner weapon, while also having a very high chance to award an Iron Banner Engram on top of that. They also say as for defeats, both weapon drops and engrams have a higher drop rate too, so you can either get the roll that you're chasing as a random drop, or you can focus with the engram at Saladin. Plus gilding for the Iron Lord title will return, and they say wearing Iron Banner gear, using Iron Banner emblems and completing Saladin's daily challenges will get us there faster, as these give reputation boosts. So that's another component to look out for next week, and let us know if you plan to dive into the Iron Banner when it returns. Next up though, Bungie talk about a mid-episode balance update, and they say there will be more details to share about this at a later date. However, a handful of things jump out early as issues in the Crucible in particular. So firstly, they talk about Kvostov, and for recoil, they say it should come as no surprise to anyone that's used the beloved bullet-bouncing auto rifle that there was something different about the recoil, and this is a result of a bug. So they intend to reduce only the recoil of the special ricochet rounds by 50%, but it was instead applied to the entire magazine, effectively giving Kvostov maximum stability, and it has made the gun substantially easier to use than other auto rifles and has predictably led to huge spikes in effectiveness in Crucible. So they will be removing the bugged effect that reduces recoil by 50%. They say though as a middle ground, they've increased the base stability by 30, which takes it up to 72, and this will give it some, but not all of that stable feel, without leaving it so far out of band. I'm assuming that will also affect PvE content, so keep that in mind. Then for ricochet rounds, they say this is a problematic balance issue for PvP, but they want to avoid impacting PvE with this change, so they've reduced the initial bonus impact damage against players only from 15% to 5%, but additionally they've reduced the bouncing bullet damage against players from 18.4 to 4.6 damage, which leaves PvE unchanged. So stats-wise, it sounds like those changes will affect all content in the game, but for the ricochet changes in particular, they're only going to apply to the Crucible, which in itself is at least a positive. Otherwise, they talk about Red Death, and they say while the stability on this weapon isn't bugged, it's still very strong. So they've experimented with several different tuning options for it, and completely replacing the recoil with the standard pulse rifle recoil felt like it shifted the gun too far away from its origins, so they've instead chosen to reduce the added stability that the pattern provides, and this will align the burst spread more closely with other pulse rifles while retaining as much of the unique feel as possible. So recoil changes coming to Red Death there as well. Give us your thoughts about it down below. And next they speak about Speaker's Sight, and the orb generation in particular, and they say it's currently too easy to generate an extreme number of orbs in the Crucible with this exotic. And while we'd like to retain the ability to generate orbs in Crucible to allow players to lean into their healer fantasy, the current volume is not healthy for the sandbox. So as a short-term solution, they will be disabling the orb gem portion of the exotic in Crucible only. However, we will revisit allowing the weapon to create orbs at a more reasonable rate. I assume they're referring to the exotic specifically there. So a couple of changes come in. Give us your thoughts about it, but they do add we'll have more to talk about before the mid-episode patch drops. And we don't want to give too much away while things are still in flux, but there are several quality of life features to roll out, as well as a Destiny 2 reprised map coming in the next episode, UI updates, and a big feature that they're still heads down working on for our third episode that they can't wait to share with players. So more stuff coming down the road for Crucible, but otherwise give us your thoughts on those adjustments to particular weapons and exotics. Finally in the TWID though, there are a couple of updates here worth mentioning, and there's a Pony error code update. They say we believe we've solved the issue involving the Pony error code, so players can now go into settings and turn public fireteam invites, text chat, and Bungie friend requests back on. That's for any folks who disabled them due to that issue. Plus for the raid jacket and bag, the Salvation's Edge ones, they say players now have until July 9th to defeat the witness in Salvation's Edge and earn the chance to purchase the raid jacket and sling bag via Bungie rewards. I assume that's probably because the actual completion rate of the new raid is relatively low, so they're extending the time to try and bring in a bit more cash. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. Otherwise, they point out for Excision and the cutscenes that an epilogue option is now available in the difficulty selection menu for the Excision activity, which allows players to rewatch the final cinematics for final shape. So if you missed out on those previously, you can go ahead and watch them immediately in the game, which is a positive. For today though, that's the bulk of the important stuff related to the game in the TWID. If you want to check out any of the other updates, the TWID is linked below. For today though, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, a rating below very much helps us out on the channel. Also be sure to get subscribed and I'll keep you up to date with Destiny content. Hit that notification bell as well so that you don't miss out on anything. But otherwise, cheers for watching, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.